All right.
Is it black pen or?
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the King County Finance and Budget Committee meeting of Wednesday, September 27th at 9:01. We have roll call, please.
Juby,
Juby here.
Lewis,
Who's here?
Sanchez,
Sanchez present.
Burgess here.
Pepe,
Pepe here.
Leonard,
Leonard here.
Furman.
Firm here.
You have quorum.
Thank you very much. Remote attendance requests, there are none. Approval of minutes from our August 23rd. meeting.
Pepe asks for unanimous consent for the approval of minutes.
Discussion on that, any? Very good, they've approved. Public comments. I do not have any comments. Wow, good start. Treasury report, Mr. Lawson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Our report was submitted 7 to 8 days ago. As always, the priority in this order in the Treasurer's office is safety, liquidity, and then the return on investment. Blair, if you'd go to the interest income performance chart, about the third page in after the cover letter.
Page 8.
Good, thank you very much. In August, interest income was 1.7 million. In July, it was 1.4 million. And then in June, it was slightly over 2.08. With the indulgence of the chairman and vice chairman committee, I just like to respectfully make an observation on last night, the page 15 of the budget process presentation. There was a comment. I understand the context that the comment is made, but my input to the committee, the finance committee, is that interest, where it says interest earned is savings. that's not always true. Sometimes it's true if the decision is made to leave it in savings account, but interest income is revenue in classification of financial statements, and savings, as I think it's used in that context, is an asset. So basically 5 categories on a financial statement of financial resources. On an operating statement, there's revenue and expense. In this case, interest income is revenue. On the balance sheet side of the ledgers, it's the assets then typically equal the liabilities and the shareholders' equity. So those 5 categories, and to say, well, what category does interest income fall? And the answer is revenue. So I respectfully disagree because it's not always true. Many people and organizations use interest income to live on and to run operation. Kane County has always used, as far as I know, for the last 10 years that I've been paying attention to the finances of the county, it has used interest income as part of the revenue when we go to put together a budget. It's a luxury that some folks who have higher incomes, perhaps, and greater assets, to not use interest. Other people live off of that. And a concern that I have, and I want to stay away from the policy because that's your authority, it's what you guys do. But it does create a demand for a tax increase, a property tax increase, because if you're not going to use projected interest income in the budget process, you're going to have to find that money someplace else. So property tax increase, I think everybody on the committee already knows, is about 2.8 million. The maximum property tax increase under PTEL, and that's 2.8 million versus the $10 million more that we have this year. So that's all the comments I have, Mr. Chairman. Oh, excuse me. I'm so sorry. I had one other thought. Please forgive me. Just wanted to mention that there's going to be times that I'm going to make mistakes in the treasurer's office. From time to time, that's just going to happen. I don't know when it's going to be, but the habit that I had during the 8 years that I had the privilege of serving as chairman, I tried to put all those, when I did make a mistake, put it on the table, people take a look at it, and also include not only the mistake, but what I learned from the mistake as far as good for the future. My policy has always been, it is better to be generally right than precisely wrong. Folks who get so tight. Directionally, I think people need to go in the right direction. I think it was Voltaire who said, don't let the perfect become enemy of the good. And so the idea of perfection, we cannot do that. We raise our kids and our grandkids, be brave, not perfect, work hard, and try to be kind. So with that, that's for future inoculation. It's like my morning vaccine.
Very good.
Thank you.
Mr. Tepe.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Lausen, I'd like to thank you for finally attempting to answer some of my questions. Okay, I will be going over that in depth.
Microphone.
I think your sense of humor. I think your sense of humor is somewhat unique, but so is mine. But thank you, and I'll be working on those. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Mr. Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lawson, I have one question for you. On your chart that you showed with projected versus promised actual performance, in adding up through August, I come up with about a little over $12 million. Is that money that you have in the bank or received already?
Yes, that is money that the county taxpayers, the board, each of you individually now have. That is money in the bank.
Thank you.
The questions? Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. Finance Director? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Treasurer budget presentation. I'm sorry.
I'll be presenting our budget at a future Finance Committee meeting. It's a little discouraging, but I mean, I understand what everybody's trying to accomplish as a team to produce, real good performance, have 10, $12 million extra, and then have a proposal that cuts my budget by 4%. But I understand these are hard times for the board to make the adjustments. I appreciate the Finance Committee's help. Kathy and her team are helping me with like alternative ways of getting the job done without asking the board for additional general funds for treasury. So thanks, Kathy.
Thank you. Now, Finance Director report. Ms. Hopkinson.
Hello, I have two presentations today. One is an update from the Finance Department, and I'm going to follow that. Thank you. By the Finance Department budget. And this presentation was updated last night because of some of the questions that were asked. So it was emailed out to the Finance Committee members this morning. I printed some hard copies. I think there's 3 people who walked in the room after, and my staff is printing some extra copies right now for everybody. So just an update of what's happening in the Finance Department. So the fiscal 2022 annual audit was completed on August 30th. The audit really does need, the rule is it should be completed within 6 months after year end, but because of the transition, we just made it under the wire, literally. It was, we had to get it in by August 31st because technically the state of Illinois could start withholding our tax revenue. So that was all good. We received a clean opinion across the board. The audit reports received a clean opinion. Our single audit, which is the audit of federal funds, received a clean opinion. We also had to file an annual report with the state and a report with the state of Illinois GATA group. And let's see here. I want to again thank Amy Reamer Holmes, Juliet Gaber, Bernadette Versbiak, and Nikki DiCardo. Coming in July, we've been through the war zone the last few months, and they have been working exceptionally hard. What else is going on in finance? We are looking at trying to automate some of the things that we do. There's a lot of manual processes going on, including our monthly bank reconciliation process. We actually have Erica Wagner back helping us do it for a few weeks because she was the one who did it for years. And when I got here, no one had reconciled to the treasurer's book since December. And we just haven't had the time, and we have to make the time for something like that. There's a module within our accounting software, which has never been purchased or used. We're trying to set up an appointment with New World to see if that could essentially automate our bank reconciliation process. I'm also looking at, there's all sorts of data tools that the Finance Department has access to. I'm working with the IT department to see if that can be pushed out to a lot of the departments. It would probably save a lot of phone calls and emails in from the departments into our office. The hitch right now is permission settings so that the departments don't have access to the entire county. Just there, and harder than you would think, Payroll. As I'm sure you know, walking down the hall here, there's a lot of paper in payroll. Any sort of payroll change is made on paper, triplicate paper. I think Chair Sanchez, Bill Ross, and Cliff. There is a module that we own in our accounting software that we are going to, we're actually testing out now with a few departments and hope to have rolled out by the end of the fiscal year, which would automate any sort of a salary change, would require department heads to log in to our accounting software and have to click through, which is something that they probably wouldn't be used to. So changes can sometimes be challenging. Also, and it's in our packet today, we're going to be for a resolution for your approval, we're changing the bank that we use to administer our credit card program, what we call our P-card program. I'll also take a moment, and Jamie Labrillo will be talking about this at a later date as well. But it's a policy that the county is going to have, it's a new state law, essentially, that the county is going to have to be implementing effective January 1st. We're probably going to implement it December 1st, and it's going to change how sick days are awarded. It's called Sick Leave for All. And essentially, we're going to be moving to an accrual-based system instead of what the county has now, which is front-loading sick days on December 1st. This law makes sick time available to all employees, full-time, part-time, seasonal, everyone. So it's a lot of work in our payroll department. We're going to have to change all the codes in payroll. Our payroll director, Patsy Clark, is never not busy. So that is coming. Okay, next, an update on where we are financially. We are looking at, for fiscal 2023, new revenues and expenses. We're looking at a loss for the end of the year. As I've mentioned many times, we budgeted a loss, and we will probably have a loss in our general fund. And that is not considering the use of any emergency reserves, which we may have to do to balance this year's budget. In 2024, I'm going to give a preview of where we are with the 2024 budget, again, focusing specifically on the general fund, because that is where we can't balance the budget every year. Because as I talked about yesterday, the functions of the county, like transportation, namely, have recurring revenue, motor fuel tax, state motor fuel tax, county motor fuel tax. They've got property tax levies. They have the RTA sales tax. They have the impact fee revenue that are recurring, healthy revenue streams funding that function of the county. And we do not have something similar other than our property taxes and the state sales taxes funding our general fund to keep pace. And the transportation department, their motor fuel tax and county option motor fuel tax is tied to CPI, so it keeps going up. The rates keep going up. So in a way, there's almost a competition between functional areas of the county in terms of where the money is going. So here's just a look back. Yesterday, I talked about how we use reserves. So I just started with 2019 because it's the year right before the pandemic, because the pandemic years are jumbled up. They're always going to be jumbled up. So back in 2019, we used about $1.5 million in our reserves to balance the budget. And these are actual costs. In 2020, we used reserves and CARES and ARPA money. In 2021, we used reserves and CARES and ARPA money. And in 2022, we used ARPA money. And so we're limping from year to year. The way that we did the budget this year, we asked all the departments to enter the budget under what we called the first review without any vacancies. And then to keep their contractual services, commodities, and capital at their 2023 amounts. Then for second review, we said, okay, go ahead, put in all of your vacancies, as well as any supplemental contractual service, capital, commodity requests. And so where we are today, and this is these are the amounts that have been presented to you by all the departments as they've gone to their standing committees over the last few weeks. Without any vacancies, we're at 11.3 million. And that also that first column does not, and the second column does not include any amounts for cost of living increases, merit increases, union contract. There's 9 contracts that are up. Doesn't include any of that. So we're already under. If you include the vacancies, we're at 17.5 under, which the total budget is comparable to the 2023 budget. So the budget dollars are still about the same. The problem is we just don't have the revenue to support the functional areas in the general fund without borrowing from our reserves or trying to get one-time grant revenues, which, you know, I'm hoping that we're not going to have a pandemic again. Yes.
Excuse me, Kip. In the second review, did you include any kind of general increase for payroll?
No, and I'm going to talk about that in so neither of those included any cost of living increase, merit increase, or equity increases.
Okay.
Right. So the county I mentioned this last night, the county started this equity project 2.5 years ago and set aside 3 $900,000 pools of money totaling 2.7 million to be used for equity. That project has not been completed. And essentially what's been happening, there's been what I call soft equity increases in some departments across the county. So probably some of that 2.7 has already been used, but some not. Okay, so the first review, we took the salaries based on the people that were working today, so their actual salaries. So when you load that, it's real people, real employees. It did not include vacant positions, union salary increases, which there's going to be retroactive pay for some of these contracts because there's a few contracts that have been out since last year that are still not settled. Because that's how union contracts work when you settle them when they're out. You have to go back to the beginning of when it expired. And we don't know yet what those rates will be. Merit increases and or further equity adjustments. The commodities, contractual, and capital were held to 2023 budget amounts. The second review includes vacant positions, health insurance for vacant positions, and supplemental requests for commodities, contractual, and capital. And I will also say this, after we loaded all of the health insurance based on the selections that county employees had chosen last year, it's an additional $2 million. But open enrollment is starting now, and employees can definitely, change that. The second review also, I think I can go to the slide now. So here's some options. How do you solve problems like this when you don't have enough money and you don't, according to policy, our county policy, we shouldn't be using reserves, emergency reserves to balance the budget. So option A, and I tried to put the put things in different colors to help everyone understand the flow here. So the green is things that the would improve the gap. Red is something that would be taken out of the expenses. And I will also say this, we talked about capital yesterday and how you fund capital. So our current capital projects fund has about 15 million in the balance. The general fund is the primary source of revenue to fund the capital projects fund. And typically in our general fund budget, we budget anywhere from $3 to $9 million a year to take money from the general fund to fund the capital projects fund. Okay, so, and we have a lot of building improvements and just general maintenance to do across all the facilities in the county. Right, so the first option, option A, property tax increase. So I have 3.5. So the PTEL limit is 5. If you apply the 5% to last year's levy, you come up with around 2.8. Once you add in new construction, it goes to 3.5 because you have to start with last year's property values. So when you add in the new construction from this year, you would end up going to about 6.06%, which would require a truth in taxation hearing. In order to stay at 2.8 or under and avoid a truth in taxation hearing, you're actually not going up to 5%. You're actually going around 3.9% property tax increase. There was a lot of talk yesterday about the money that is the RTA sales tax money, because it is truly one of the only levers that the county board has to move money in the county. So in order to help solve this budget problem with option A, you're taking money from transportation departments. And as we talked about yesterday, not all of their RTA sales tax money that they receive every year, which is about 18 million, is free and clear to take because they have a lot of it locked up in purchase orders that have already been approved for multi-year projects where they come here, they get a purchase order for $2 million that they're spending over 3 or 4 years. So it's already encumbered, it's locked up, but there still is unencumbered money. We have 2 other small funds, which I would like to recommend that we close those funds and just move them as part of the general fund. No other county really set it up like this. So there were 2 small funds that were set up that pull in RTA sales tax money. One is to fund public safety equipment and capital. The second is to fund judicial capital, mostly software. And the problem is both of these funds are taking RTA sales tax money, which is recurring revenue, and they're building up fund balances in those funds. And if we so right now, as part of the 2024 budget, those funds, they have extra money that they haven't budgeted. So this happens every year. So if we just moved those revenue streams, it's 6% and 9% of the RTA sales tax and just consolidated it with the general fund. The general fund would benefit from any unused RTA sales tax money. Does that make sense? Okay. So if we added back a cost of living increase, which I recommend that the board, and this is, I did a 3% for all salaries, including union, just to have a number for this presentation. And I took 1% to create a pool for merit increases based on all salaries. And then, but we would have to remove a $3 million transfer to the capital projects fund, which is not good because we need money for our facilities. So option B is the same. But the option B budget, that budget, and let's go back to option A for a second. Option A doesn't include any vacant positions. So that essentially would mean almost a hiring freeze, right? Nobody can fill any vacant positions. So you would still have to take all this money from RTA sales tax, raise property taxes, and not fund the capital fund and do a hiring freeze. Option B is in order to fill, the budget that was built with vacant positions. Okay, so just to kind of get an idea of what was put in that position, there's in that budget, there's $4.4 million of vacant positions budgeted in the general fund. There was 1 million that the state's attorney's office added for equity adjustments for the state's attorney's staff. The benefits associated with vacant positions were 440. So that's just to kind of get a picture on, it's almost the same budget as number one. It's just to show you the amount of vacant positions that were built into the budget. And option C is, all the vacant positions are funded, giving a cost of living increase to employees, setting up a merit increase pool. And I basically had to balance to whatever was left for equity adjustments. And that would be if the voters of the county decided to fund public safety, sheriff, state's attorneys, et cetera, with a 0.25% special county retailers occupation tax. But that is an unknown because it would have to be voted in, and we would still need a property tax increase. And then there were some questions that came up yesterday at the COW. So this is the same slide that I had up yesterday, and it showed all the major tax revenue streams for King County, DuPage, McHenry, and Lake. And just, like I said, it's a sort of a quick and dirty, it's not precise sort of calculation. If you just look at per capita revenue, King County is the lowest by far. And there were particular questions about the equalized assessed valuation and the rates used by other counties. So I pulled those up last night, and I have the attached printouts in this slide deck too. So Kane, these are the most recent. And, the equalized assessed valuation numbers are always changing. So latest EAV for Kane is 17 billion. The tax rate is 0.3311. And our most recent levy was 57 million. DuPage, 45 billion in value, a lower tax rate of 0.1587, bringing in 65. But if you look back, to this side here, DuPage benefits greatly from all of the retail that they have in their county. They're really bringing in sales tax revenue, big time. And we don't have that same kind of tax base in King County like they do. They have Naperville and Oak Brook. McHenry County, their EAV was 10 billion. And their tax rate is 0.69, bringing in 71 million. So I think, Dale, you asked a question yesterday. So their tax rate is essentially double our property tax rate. And then Lake County, 28 billion, also a high tax rate, 0.58, and they are bringing in 169 million. And then I attached and highlighted in yellow. And I must give credit to our county because I think we have the easiest to read tax extension report, really. So this is our tax extension report from 2022. This is McHenry's. McHenry's looks pretty similar. And then DuPage, and then Lake. So does anyone have any questions before I give my presentation on my department's 2024 budget.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, Mr. Leonard.
Yes, Ms. Tompkins, I've got a question for you on your different 24 potential budgets. And I'm just wondering, this year, the treasurer reported earlier that we have $12 million in the bank in interest earned. Why are we not using any of that 12 million in the 24 budget? Because I think the board has the authority to use that money in the budget next year. Do they not?
The board has the authority that whatever that money is that comes into our budget this year, and we don't know, as I talked about in the presentation yesterday, we don't know what the market value is going to be at the end of the year. Because literally, when we make that adjustment in our accounting records, because for the last 2 years, whatever interest was earned was essentially wiped out because the market value was so much lower. This year may be different. The interest earned could be, we're hoping, a lot greater than the drop in the market value of the investments that are in the current portfolio. I know that we are budgeting for 2024. The interest earned that we're budgeting in the 2024 budget is 3.8 million for next year. So that money, interest earned, as we went through the chart yesterday, is a volatile form of revenue. You can't count on it from year to year. If you look at that chart, we had back in 2007, we had $11 million of interest. And then over the years, it was 1 million. So in terms of long-term balancing a budget with recurring revenue streams and recurring expenses, investment performance and the returns on investments are something you can't count on year after year.
Yes, I agree.
But yes,
with
the
you.
board can certainly absolutely, because if we end the year this year and there's no write down, that money would be going into reserves. And let's say that was over and above where we ended up. Or if we end up with a loss, let's say we have a surplus of 4 million. If you look at it from, just say 10, use the number 10 million, that would be going into our reserves, which is our policy. And so we would be borrowing from reserves, which we have done year after year.
Yes, and I totally understand the reserve restriction that we as a board voted on. I guess my other question is, your third option with the sales tax, why are we even putting that in? That has to go to referendum. And-
Right. Just showing it as something that is a possibility, because we don't have the revenue streams that we have right now, the property tax revenues, the level of revenue that we're getting from property tax revenue and sales tax and income tax that's going into the general fund has not been enough to support the expenses, the growing expenses. And as we talked about yesterday, most of the general fund is salaries and benefits. And most of those salaries and benefits are public safety meaning sheriff, state's attorney, public defender, coroner, court services,
Judicial and public safety.
KingCom, yes, judicial and public safety offices.
I guess maybe I didn't phrase my question properly, but since there is absolutely no option of getting a sales tax revenue appreciated for the 24 year, why do we even have it there? Maybe in 25, if it goes to referendum and it's passed by the public, but that would be 25, not 24. So
I just wanted to show it. I get a lot of questions about it.
Well, it's certainly something we've discussed in the past.
Yeah.
So but it's
Thank
something
you.
that's not going to happen before
Right.
25.
25.
Right.
Ms. Burgess.
Thank you, sir. I wanted to apologize for yesterday. I did have a hard stop that I needed to leave the meeting for, but I had already printed your packet and read all the way through it. And by the magic of Blair, I was able to listen to the entire meeting. And I, it's difficult sometimes to sit here and communicate, but I want to communicate clearly what I called Corrine with immediately following. Your information was excellent. sitting in this position now for a cycle or two, you have tried to open a certain level of transparency that we have not had in the past. And I don't mean that to be critical. I mean it to be complicated. And you've taken time to begin breaking that down in a format that I at least find simpler to understand. And I want to acknowledge to you my appreciation of that. What some of the things I'm struggling with, not struggling. So we have tried to implement systemic changes for the past couple of years. At least at the human services level, we've identified gaps or holes or problems that we think we can quantify and close. And it's really nice to see some of those, albeit taking some time to get here, they are there. And we see the vacant positions, and we see policies coming in play that are very good. And those are so appreciated. What I did walk away from last night, though, was if somebody came to me and said, hey, listen, Cliff, for your business, we wanted to do this or that. My first question is, well, how much do we have to spend and how much is it going to cost? And so often when we're looking at these budgets at the public level, it seems to be, this is how much it's going to cost. Now let's go find the money for it. As a private sector guy, I struggle with that. I'm like, how much do we have to spend? And then we need to go backwards with that. I struggle with having staff. As I was reading through this at first blush, I said to myself, it almost seems like staff is trying to dictate policy to us. And then after, and it should be the other round. We should the other way around. The 24 here should be saying, this is the policy that we want to follow, and then live by our words. After listening to the presentation yesterday, I did not have that flavor. I felt that, and as we're learning each other's personalities, I very much felt that you were presenting, these are options, and you're boxed in a corner on a couple of things, but we have options on a couple of things, and where do we want to go with that? And so my soliloquy here again is just to state my appreciation for what you're trying to do, and then look back, Mr. Berman, at the finance committee here and say, one of the things I picked up on yesterday was that specifically in your comments regarding capital projects, that things should all be coming, if you're spending money from other committees, it really needs to come through here for approval on, do you have the money to spend and where that line item's coming from? And that's a kind of, in my opinion, a cultural shift that's way overdue. We just don't hang on to everything as tight as we should be. And I appreciate, I don't know if that was the intent of your comments, but very much appreciated. And it's about time we verbalize that. And I don't know how that changes the dynamic of the flow. But to me, we need to be, I find us to be a little bit loose in terms of when somebody comes and says, well, we need to do this. Well, I understand the need. The question is, do we have the resources to do it? And how so are we making that happen? So thank you.
Can I would just say, again, this gets to strategy and what is the level of service that's expected. We have various functions across the county. We have public safety, we have judicial, we have transportation, we have health development, right? So what is the expected level of service? What are the programs? There's always a new program. Do we need that program? Right. So these are the decisions, because at the end of the day, right, if we don't have the revenue for these services, then you have to decide, well, which services should be cut,
Diminished, right?
right? Right.
And before I give up the floor, Madam Chair, are my words to Kathy this morning, at least in general, what I described to you last night? Okay, thank you.
Oh, Verna.
Thank you, Chairman. Kathy, can we go back to slide number 7 for your recommendations? While Blair does that, basically, I wanted to know what percentage of recommendation you're requesting for the RTA sales tax from transportation to general fund?
It would be bringing, so right now they get 75%. It would be bringing them down to 50%.
So it would be a 50-50 split,
Yeah.
and that would be a policy for going forward. So that would be a recurring revenue.
Well, so the good thing is that it is a policy that's in the financial policies of the county. The county can change that every year,
Okay.
right? It's not a state that determination of how much of that RTA sales tax money goes to one function versus another is purely at the board's discretion. And it has been changed over the years. I think it used to be 80 or 81% was going to transportation.
And then second, the transfer from the public safety fund and the judicial tech fund, is that their balance, their current balance that they have?
So that's basically the net for those two funds. The 2024 budget for those two funds, this was the amount unbudgeted based on what we think is going to be coming in terms of revenue for this year's RT or for the 2024 RTA sales tax. And then based on what was budgeted to be spent. And both of those funds have about $1 million or so. I think one has $1 million, maybe one has a little bit less. But ideally, I wouldn't just transfer it. I would just consolidate those two funds into the general fund permanently, because that way any unspent money doesn't build up in a separate little fund, and it just goes into the general fund. Because as I talked about yesterday, when you have all these little buckets of money that are not statutorily required and they build up, it's sometimes it sits there and gets unused. Sometimes it may get over budgeted because it's there. I'll go grab that money. And it would be better if it was just all in the general fund.
And then my third question, yesterday, when you spoke about the 124 special revenue funds that we have in this county, you've already mentioned how many of those are that we need to keep statutorily. Have we discussed just sweeping those funds that have a fund balance now that haven't been allocated and seeing what the balance would be to go to the general fund?
That is it's something I can't do tomorrow. I have a starter list that was started from Joe, where he listed out every single fund and he cited whether it was statutorily required or just board designated. And I have most of the funds across the county done like that, the analysis. I don't have all of them, so it would take a little bit of work. But I would be wholeheartedly in support of a recommendation to sweep any of these unused funds where we can into the general fund.
Yeah, because my position would be until we know what is actually there in all these little buckets, I wouldn't be for, proposing a property tax increase at this time. I want to know how much money we actually have that hasn't been allocated to the general fund to fund what we really need before we ask our taxpayers for more money. So that would be my position today.
Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'd like to go back to the RTA.
So Tammy, he played the course last Monday?
Yeah.
Tuesday before, it was yeah,
Monday.
yeah. We had a couple board members out with him.
Yes, you're unmuted.
Mr. Caius, we can hear you.
Did Bill play it too, or Leonard, or was it just? No, just.
Blair, pull the plug.
Madam Chair,
Thank you. Where is Chris? What's he doing?
are you the ventriloquist?
So back to the RTA. It's my understanding, and I'd like to drill down a little bit more before we start thinking about shifting RTA, just so I have a better knowledge of what this would entail and what the repercussion of it is. It's my understanding that if we cut back on RTA funds, there's a potential that federal and state dollars will be lost because I believe it's a match fund. So can we, before we make that suggestion of 50% or whatever the potential is going to be, what exactly is that number of
Well, coming from
Of
KDOT and
Lost revenue.
coming from KDOT, where I did the budget there for 9 years, there's federal dollars coming into the motor fuel tax fund and the RTA sales tax fund. We like to keep them in the RTA sales tax fund just to keep the motor fuel tax clean because it's a state tax and we have to do extra reporting on it. And we like to just keep out reimbursements. But it is the fund that is used primarily for capital projects. So new bridges, new roadways, a new right turn lane, new traffic signalization. The county transportation department uses their local option motor fuel tax, which is actually the one fund that KDOT has that is always on the cusp of running out of money. They use the local option motor fuel tax for all of the maintenance, your resurfacing, your crack sealing, bridge maintenance. So that is actually becoming a larger and larger portion, growing portion, because as you build a new bridge, Long Meadow, Stearns, Redgate, now you need maintenance on it.
Yeah, I think we need, before we, I would like to have a better understanding of what that cost analysis is going to be, because we're going to lose money, transfer money from one fund to another fund. But what is
And
that
you could-
impact on transportation?
Right, well, and you could rate, the county board could raise the local motor fuel tax, which can be used for anything in transportation. In fact, DuPage County funds their staff out of their local option motor fuel tax fund, in addition to using it for maintenance. Here at King County, the engineers, the planners are funded out of property tax dollars, and the maintenance crew, the Teamsters, are funded out of the state motor fuel tax funds.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Juby.
I'm sorry if this has already been answered. I was
Sorry.
taking notes and I think I missed it. When you were talking about the 5% increase, it would yield 2.8 million. What was the 3.5 increase amount?
So, yeah, it's 3.9. So,
Okay, so you didn't do a 3.5 increase. I'm sorry, I
oh,
got
so the
3.5
three,
from
so
somewhere.
the $3.5 million that I am using up here, the way that you do the property tax calculation, you start with last year's.
Right, I think I
Yeah,
think I
okay.
wrote down the wrong thing. So what is your 3.9?
That is
increase?
based on
So the amount, the dollar amount of the 3.9 increase would yield how much money?
2.8.
I thought that was taking a 5% with new.
Using
construction.
5% and then adding new construction to it.
Yeah,
You actually, the way that the tax extension is done, you actually, because you start with 5%
right.
on the existing property and you come up with a number, which is 2.8, and then you add in new construction and it ends up going over. It ends
And
up
it
being
goes
like
3.9
6.06.
would be the
Right,
up
three,
Right. but
without having to have a
That's
tax.
not my
Yeah, you're right.
question. What my question is how much money would a 3.9 levy increase yield to the county?
2.8 million.
But that's what a 5% would also yield, according to what you just said.
No, 5, if you use 5%, it's, I
2.85.
should have a slide up here. You start, the way that the calculation is done, you start with 5 based on the old. And then you add in the new and you come up with 6.06, and then you have to knock it back down. If you don't want a truth and taxation hearing. So to include new construction, you're actually knocking it back down and you end up, if you wanted to avoid a truth and taxation hearing and put taxes on existing property and new property, you're actually using a a rate of 3.9%.
Okay. So let me ask this question in another way. If the calculation that you did that gave us the 2.8 million plus the 3.5 puts us at 6.06, which gives us a tax, we have to do truth and taxation.
You're right.
why is that the same amount of dollars raised if we're doing a 3.9 increase plus new construction? I'm not talking about a truth in taxation. I'm not talking about what the eventual levy is going to be. I want to know dollar amount, what would happen if we did a 3.9 or actually 3.5 is what I was looking for, a 3.9 plus our new construction. Without backing anything out, without making it confusing, what would that dollar amount be
2.8 million,
with new construction?
correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Shepherd?
Yeah, I think the point though is that if you went to the 6%, including the new construction, that would require the truth and taxation hearing, but it does not trigger a requirement for a referendum because the new construction is not included in that calculation. So you'd have a hearing and that would be the extent of the requirement.
True. Continue.
Okay, so next presentation is just the finance department budget. So the finance department is finance. We do the accounting and the budgeting, payroll and purchasing. And speaking of vacant positions, so we have, we're actually, we reorganized the department since I came in and we're eliminating one position, but we still have one vacant. We had a budget analyst last year. The person left. We have not been able to fill it. We have been interviewing. So that position is still vacant, but we eliminated in terms of headcount, we eliminated one position and reorganized how the accounting side of the finance department is working. And then we have a brand new position, which I'll talk about in a second, called the grant administrator, which came at the request from other departments in the county. So just quickly, you know, what does the finance department do? We're responsible for getting the annual audit done every year, for putting the budget together, for doing financial performance presentations. And that's something that we need to get back to doing. We've just been digging ourselves out of a hole, but that would be coming to all of the committee meetings and doing the financial presentations. And then managing all the accounting systems across the county, and then responsible for overall debt management when we do debt issuances. Purchasing is responsible for ensuring compliance with the county purchasing ordinance across and Illinois compiled statutes. They assist writing bid specs, processing vendor selection forms, getting the contracts processed. They're also responsible, they're involved in the managing our electronic bidding system, BidNet, so that vendors can submit all their bids online. And they administer the P-card system in terms of issuing new cards, and are starting to track contract expiration and dates. And then payroll. Payroll is, they process manually all the payroll for 1,300 employees and all the election workers across the county. They process all the salary adjustment forms, you name it, it's all done manually. They take all the incoming calls from everywhere across the county, real troopers in that function. So what's proposed is the health department, the development department, and the environmental management and water resources department are interested in having a grant writer / grant administrator type position that would research and look for grants for those functions. When it was discussed where best should this function be, it was decided that finance would be a good place for this department to, or for this position to reside because of all of the compliance reporting that needs to be done with that position. But we currently do not have specific funding for this other than general fund revenues Just a year over year on the finance department budget. Let me just get up my presentation here. The little, mostly our department is two things. It's staff and then our annual audit fee, pretty much, and then some training for our staff. When you're a CPA and there's 3 of us, there's all sorts of CPE requirements that we have to maintain. And then the side chart shows the difference between the original budget, which doesn't include those vacant positions, and the budget with the vacant positions and what that difference is. And I think that's it. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, Surges.
Kathy, when when I first started on the board and you were in committee, there would be an individual that came in and gave the financial reports for that department. Someplace along the line during COVID, that became the reports are placed on file. And I would challenge, I mean, maybe my esteemed colleagues, Ms. Juby dives into those, but I know that I don't click on that button often enough. In your org chart, it would be, I think it would behoove all of us to have the 5-minute presentation by
Absolutely.
someone that says, you're
Absolutely.
over here, you're under here, you're doing great, you're not so good. You know what? And maybe if that's not monthly, if we can at least find a way to do that quarterly, but I don't know who that person is.
Yeah.
And then second question, and I'm ignorant to this, but this Scott Berger fellow, who's a very nice man, but I associate him with grants. I don't know why, but you say his name and I think grants. What role does he have versus creating this new position? And are we duplicating there or something there? Can we consolidate that? Or is that 2 totally different branches? Have a great day.
I don't have the answer to that specific question, if it would be duplicating anything that he's already doing. We have internally discussed applying for a riverboat grant funding to kickstart this position, because in theory, the way something like this would work in theory is the grant writer starts winning grants and then they can fund themselves, right? In theory. But we haven't had the opportunity to do that yet, but I will look into that and see if it would be a duplicate service at all.
Madam Chair.
And again, the monthly or quarterly financials by department, that would be,
Absolutely, absolutely.
thank you. You need a portable microphone.
I
Just take it.
don't want to interrupt everybody, so I come in, I just sit. The grant writer position is separate from what Scott Berger does. Scott Berger is dealing, and he has handled your CARES Act grant. It was put onto his plate during that period of time. But my knowledge of what he's doing is primarily HUD grants and workforce development grants and managing that money. This is separate from this. The position that was discussed with this grant administrator would not only be doing the research for grants for the development department, energy and environment, and what was the other one? Health department. They would be researching these grants, but some would be doing research. Some of it would be actually doing the narrative for the grant. Some of it would be doing the compliance. And each one of these departments has a different need in managing the complexity of these grants. And when you have state and federal grants, they're onerous. They're not like foundation grants, which you have to comply. These are substantial 100-page grants, if anybody's ever seen them. The other thing is that there's an awful lot of federal money available right now, and possibly state money as well for grants. And they simply don't have the capacity to do the research, the technical aspect of finding the grants. and then do the compliance. I use a perfect example as I'm looking at Jared. If you look at the ARPA money and we're complying with the grant applications that have to come through that, and we have to have specialization for that. Think of that internally for us. Being able to collect the data, make sure that it's done on a timely manner, to have a schedule of knowing when these grants are due, when the compliance is due, when the application is due. And to get all teams on board to get that done effectively. It's
So
development.
because you seem to be reacting to my question, I guess
I'm not reacting, I'm answering. it.
answering. So Scott is not, that's not a department. I use the name Scott because
That is not his functionality.
that, okay. And that we don't have that department at all right now.
Correct.
Got it. And thank you.
A good example of this is that our state organization for counties, seems like every day something is coming across us with a message that's saying, this grant is available, apply by such and such a time, this grant is available. And we think that, oh, somebody's grabbing that and applying, but if they don't have the time to do that, or they don't have, they're not doing it. Mr.
Roth here. There's other grant writers across the county, and Janice Hill is another example in agriculture. And then even the elected officials are writing grants. I know Jamie is, and state's attorneys and stuff. And there again, we got to crawl before we can fly. So I'm not saying build a humongous department, but we need to start thinking out of the box, because like Madam Chair said, there is lots of grants available and they're never simple to fill out. I've done grants for my nonprofit, and some are easy and some are very complex.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kathy, you're the expert on the finances for the transportation department, now the county. But my question is, I've heard from people in the transportation department and outside of it, that if we reduce the contribution to the transportation department with the RTA tax, that we are jeopardizing the monies we get from CMAP. Is that correct?
I have heard that as well.
And do you know what amount of money we get from CMAP?
Well, CMAP right now is an organization that is a large planning organization. The money that we get directly from, there's two ways we get money from quote unquote CMAP. We get direct money to reimburse some staff salaries, our planners, our urban planners. And then CMAP, because they're a planning organization, they assist with the distribution of federal funds, right, across all of the member organizations across the state.
So, could you give me an idea of what amount of money they've given to our transportation department in the last year or two?
That CMAP, the reimbursements to staff, to reimburse staff salaries is about little over $200,000. And then in terms of which federal dollars, off the top of my head, I don't have that number.
Kathy, would it be like 100,000 or 1 million?
Oh, it would be millions. It would be
Millions.
millions.
So that's kind of a big risk in that if we change our percentage contribution, we may be able to give 6 million to the general fund, but by going from 75% to 50%, we could lose $2 to $4 million.
Right, and this is where, it gets to what is the level of service that the county is expecting from its different functional areas. If the county believes that transportation needs more money to maintain the board's expected level of service, then the functional areas that are funded out of the general fund, such as sheriff, state's attorney, that the board can cut the levels of service for the public safety and judicial functions and or coroner, animal control, et cetera.
No, and I understand your point. I guess my concern is, I don't want the transportation department to lose $6 to $10 million by making this $6 million transfer. Because I think there are other options we have available for funding for 24. I'm not talking about 25 or 26 down the road, but for 24 with the additional monies we've earned this year. And also every year, seems like the state income tax and the sales tax go up, and I've seen that for years now. So, if we have 12 million in interest income that we could apply, and then maybe another $1 or $2 million, then I think we're looking at a much smaller deficit to make up, which I think is feasible without hurting the salaries or the merit pay or the vacancy positions that we currently are looking at possibly withdrawing from.
And I did budget for increases in the sales tax and the income tax and the RTA sales tax revenue that's coming. So in those numbers that I showed, they all have increases. But there's also decreases. If you look at that number, the top line revenue number. So, when the clerk of the circuit court was here last Friday and her fees, that office's fees are going down year after year after year. Another big number, and I'm going out to meet with the sheriff this afternoon. So in 2022, the county general fund received $1.2 million in reimbursements for board and care, both from other counties, I believe it was Kendall County and the Illinois Department of Corrections, to house inmates here, either for Kendall or people who were sentenced and prisoners, but the Illinois Department of Corrections couldn't receive them yet. The 2023 budget expected another $1 million. To date, today, we have 149,000.
And is there any calculation in there for the juvenile justice out county individuals that come into our juvenile?
That is all in the budget, but I mean, we need to understand, again, why there's such huge swings. Because the 2024 budget, there's $1 million in the 2024 general fund budget for board and care. But if we've only received this year, 149,000.
And I don't see that going up with what's going on with.
Right. So it's so we are still providing this, the costs are the same, but our revenues in specific areas like that are going down.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on.
I'm sorry, before we move on, I see that Tom Rickert is online. I'm wondering if he could give us a little explanation, maybe a little bit more definitive on if we move the percentage in the transportation department from 75 to 50%, how that would affect his department dollar wise.
Are you ready for that, Tom?
Yeah, I'll do my best. I think I can probably actually put together a paper to explain it a little bit better, but if you can hear me, I just want to make sure everybody can hear me.
Yes.
All right, this is Tom Rickert from Division of Transportation. At least at this point in time, I think it's important to know that there will be impacts, but I also understand too the difficulties of balancing the overall county budget. So I'm here to listen and to understand. But when you look at our overall funds, the Director of Finance showed last night that we do have a large balance within our funds. That balance within our funds, if you look at the contractual obligations, most of the money, the 128 million that she showed last night, most of that is already spent. It's just not being paid out until upcoming years. There's, I think, almost $50 million right now in funds that we owe to the state once the state bills us for projects that have been completed or that are under construction right now. So that's just an example of how there's multi-year funding of projects. When you look at the RTA sales tax, our cash flow, the obligations that the contractual obligations actually go into 2024. Half of the RTA sales tax funds are already expended for the 2024 budget, and the obligations for just maintenance of the remaining funds are there. So there will be a significant impact for any funds that need to be shifted. Obviously, our department will adjust and figure out ways to do it. You might have to pull back on some of the maintenance of some of the transportation facilities. But that's all stuff that as we proceed forward, we can evaluate and try to see how that occurs. The most flexible fund is the RTA sales tax. And so it is the primary fund that we generally utilize when we're looking at going after grants, federal and state grants. When you look at reoccurring costs and reoccurring revenues, we generally have we almost have $50 million worth of reoccurring revenues on an annual basis, and about almost the exact same amount, a little bit less, but almost $50 million in reoccurring just for maintenance purposes. So the RTA sales tax is, a lot of it's used just for the maintenance of bridges. So I think that, again, there will be consequences, but I know that as policymakers, you all have a major decision to make here. With such a large percentage of the RTA sales tax and our general, all of our revenues going towards operations and primarily maintenance, there's only a couple $1 million a year that we have available for matching federal and state funds. So every time we shift some funds, our ability to go after those federal and state grants are impacted. And so again, I could put together a white paper and distribute that to the county board just to get a clearer understanding. Verbalizing it here might not be the best format, but I'll figure out a way to get some of that information out.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Any other comments, questions, whatever? Moving on.
Chairman, Berman, if I can, I guess I'd like to just point out to the board that DuPage County uses 0 of their RTA sales tax for transportation. So they've been able to manage. I'm going to continue to advocate for our public safety and our judicial to have a bigger cut of that RTA sales tax, because I think that's one way that we can continue to fund the services for our judicial and public safety programs. So I think it's important that we kind of look a little bit outside the box. And our director did say it's a 1-year policy change. So if we notice in the next, in 24 that it didn't really work out, that there were things that the transportation lost and it's more than what we gained, then we can look at it again. But I think it's really important, at least for 24, that our judicial and public safety obtain some type of revenue. And it's not going to come from the occupational sales tax, even if we do pass it. So we do need to make sure that we're paying attention to what we believe needs to be funded more or equally. So thank you.
Very good. Madam Chair.
I wouldn't disagree with any of our county's needs. I find them all to be equal, sitting where I'm sitting. I mean, how can we say environment is more important than judicial public safety? They're all important. They're all equal, different rates of compensation, different quantity of need, but all the same. So just to share some more information, if we could reflect on yesterday's presentation, and Kathy can correct me if I'm wrong, that DuPage County has a higher tax on their gasoline, the per gallon gasoline, and that 100% of that money is going to pay for their transportation needs. It's also a much more mature county that has less roads in the unincorporated area than Kane County has. When we have got 50, I don't have my glasses on, over 50% of our area is rural farmland. So it's a different kind of mixture of land use that we have right now. And our motor fuel tax, as we've seen, is one of the lowest in the collar counties. So that's how they're able to fund it.
Very good. Moving on.
Mr. Chairman, Allen,
Yes, Ms. Allen.
thank you for allowing me to charge in. I just wanted to say that we have not been successful in raising our tax locally. I've been, I think, through 2 attempts and both of them were turned down. One a very long time ago, I'm going to say maybe 18 years ago, and then one just a couple of years ago when our citizenry showed up and said, you just can't do that to us. It's the only way we can get to work and get to the doctor and get to the grocery store. So it's always difficult to raise that. I don't know how DuPage did it. But the other thing I wanted to toss in is that anytime we lose the ability to go after matching funds, we're really stabbing ourselves in the heart. That federal money is tax money we've already put in. We're just trying to get it back. And I think we need to have those matching funds available in order to try and get those federal matching funds. With all respect to Chairman Molina and of course, Chairman Pirog, we just need to keep that in mind. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Moving on. Auditor's report, Ms. Wegman.
Hi, good morning. As in tradition, my report is short and on file. We have published our quarterly report for the first quarter of 2023, so that's included in the packet. And then we are excited to be implementing a P-card import module that we have had for New World. This is going to increase the transparency of the P-card transactions. So currently, when you receive the P-card reports, you currently see payments to Fifth Third. That's the only way that you currently see any transactions for a P-card. So with this import, you will actually be seeing the payments to the vendor and then a separate payment category to the vendor of the P-card. So currently that being Fifth Third. So that's great for us. It's great for finance because then we can actually pull the reports on where we're spending our money as opposed to just seeing that it's being put on a P-card. So we're super excited about this. We've been working on this for probably about the past 6 months. We're expected that this is going to go into place this week, if not next. There are going to be some hiccups, of course, and mainly because this impacts all departments and offices that use P-cards. So you will be seeing a change in your reports. What that looks like, I don't know, but we're excited to increase that transparency.
Very good. We have a resolution.
Do you want my budget?
Pardon?
Do you want my budget?
Well, yeah. Oh, I thought we'll talk about your budget, right?
Sounds about right. So with my budget, we are only making one change, and that's going to be in our salaries. So all of my commodities, we're going to keep that consistent of what we had last year, work within our means. What we are doing is reorganizing the office. Again, we're a small office, so when the needs of our office change, we have to reorganize. So currently I have 6 positions filled. That's including myself, so 5 of my staff. We do have 2 vacant positions, one being a staff auditor and one being an intern. We did have to use those salaries to fill the 5 staff positions that I have. We are one of the unique departments that have to compete with private sector auditors, accounting positions. So to be able to keep up with the recent changes in salaries for those sectors, we had to use everything that we had in our budget for last year. Going forward for next year, we will be keeping 5 of those total positions that we currently have. I am eliminating an accounts payable specialist that was part-time, transitioning that part-time position, combining it to the current staff auditor vacant position to make it a full-time vacant position or full-time staff auditor position. So the current accounts payable specialist is part-time. The current vacant staff auditor position is part-time, combining those to make it a full-time position. We do have space restrictions in my office, so we have room for 6 people. We have to keep it at 6 people. We do have room for an intern if we are able to locate one that's interested in government auditing. So my only change in my budget is to transition one position to a full-time position, eliminating a part-time position. That's it.
Any questions of the? Yes, Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Wegman, I noticed you and our finance director both mentioned utilizing new modules in New World to achieve, automation and time savings for our staff. So I want to thank you both for thinking like that. I think anytime we can use technology to enhance what our staff can do in less time, it's well worth whatever we pay for those modules. So I applaud that effort. And as well as your work on the P card RFP, getting us a new bank. I know that's later in the agenda, but I know you worked hard on that. So thank you as well.
Thank you. Now we have a resolution approving the August 2023 claims paid of $15,973,694.98. We have a motion.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez moves.
Leonard second.
Leonard seconds. Any discussion, questions on the? Roll call, please.
Juby,
GBI.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Yes.
passes.
Thank you. New business. Item A, a resolution authorizing a salary adjustment for the executive director of the Kane County Emergency Communications for $125,000.
Pepe moves.
Deputy
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
GBI.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
Item B, a resolution authorizing Kane County Sheriff's Office new administration wing project and a budget adjustment to the capital fund of $669,624.
Pepe moves.
Leonard seconds.
We have a motion, a second discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
GBI.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
Item C, a resolution authorizing gymnasium floor replacement at the Juvenile Justice Center, $43,200.
Pepe moves.
Debbie moves.
Leonard seconds.
Second discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
GBI.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
Item D, a resolution authorizing the creation of the Boyer Road Special Service Area Fund, number 5315.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez,
Burgess, second.
Surgeon, second discussion. Roll call, please.
Juby,
GBI.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
E is a resolution authorizing the Finance Department to contract with JP Morgan Chase Bank, North America of Chicago, Illinois, for the procurement credit card program.
Pepe moves.
Debbie moves.
Seconds.
We have a second
Yes.
discussion.
I just have a
I'm
question.
sorry.
I just have a question. Are we getting more money back and are like a rebate more with this bank than the last bank?
The answer is yes.
And then also Chase is going to give us a $10,000 like a signing.
Oh, score,
Uh,
signing bonus?
yeah.
Yay. Okay, thank
Signing
you.
bonus.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Wait,
Thanks.
whose budget did that go into?
It's right now, we put it in the finance department.
Good question, Ms. Yu. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Juby,
GBI.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Aaron, yes.
passes.
F is the resolution authorized authorization of a contract for the Kane County Generator Maintenance Services of $200,000.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez,
Juby second.
Dewey second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Dewey,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe,
Yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
G is a resolution authorizing a contract extension for a water treatment testing firm for the Judicial Center campus with Phagenics Independent Water Management of Warrenville, Illinois for $60,000.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez,
Juby second.
you'll be second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Dewey,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
H, a resolution authorizing a contract extension for a water operator for the Judicial Center campus with Schaefer and Rowland of Geneva, Illinois for $21,800.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez,
Lewis seconds.
Lewis, second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Dewey,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
Item I, a resolution authorizing a contract for building maintenance snow plowing services, $250,000.
Lewis moves.
Lewis move.
Leonard, seconds.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Dewey,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges, Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
Item J, a resolution authorizing a contract for the Kane County Electrician Services of $250,000.
Lewis moves.
Lewis move.
Sanchez seconds.
Says second, discussion. Roll call, please.
Dewey,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
Item K is a resolution authorizing a contract for fire protection services of $500,000.
Sanchez moves.
Leonard, second.
Sanchez, Leonard, discussion. Roll call, please.
Dewey,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
Item L, a resolution authorizing a contract for cloud-based community communication center, TTEC, digital service, $41,800.
Juby moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Dewey,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
M, resolution authorizing agreement for Mill Creek Special Service Area Snow Plowing Services, $161,000.
Lewis moves.
Lewis,
Juby second.
Julie, discussion. Roll call, please.
Dewey,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
N is a resolution authorization for Mill Creek Parkway Tree Installation Services contract extension of $60,000.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez,
Juby
Lewis
second.
Julie, discussion. Roll call.
Dewey,
Juby, I.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Surges, yes.
Pepe,
Pepe, yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
That was in, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, a resolution authorizing contract extension for bottled water service.
Lewis moves.
Lewis,
Thirsty Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez, Roll call.
Dewey,
Trivia, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges. Tebby,
That'd be yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
Thank you. P is a resolution authorize the extension of landscape maintenance service for the Mill Creek Special Service Area of $189,800.72.
Trivia
Leonard
moves.
moves.
I can
And
second.
Julie, discussion. Roll call, please.
Dewey,
Trivia, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges. Tepe,
Be yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
Thank you. Q is a resolution authorizing an extension of concrete lifting and repair services agreement for the Mill Creek Special Service Area of $30,000.
Trivia moves.
Julie,
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez, discussion. Roll call, please.
Dewey,
Trivia, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges. Tepe,
That'd be yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
Thank you. R is a resolution authorizing the Child Protection Data Courts grant of $4,150.
Leonard
moves.
moves.
Hunter moves.
Trivia second.
Julie, second discussion. Roll call, please.
Dewey,
Trivia, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges. Tepe,
That'd be yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
Thank you. S is a resolution authorizing additional expenditure of funds for online marketplace and maintenance repair operations. That's MRO supplies and equipment of $400,000.
Trivia moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Julie, Sanchez, discussion. Roll call.
Dewey,
Trivia, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges. Tepe,
That'd be yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
Thank you. T is a resolution authorizing expenditure of funds for multifunction copier devices, service solutions, print goods, and service renewal. $150,000.
Trivia moves.
Lewis, seconds.
Discussion. Roll call, please.
Dewey,
Trivia, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges. Tepe,
That'd be yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman, yes.
passes.
Thank you. Item U is a resolution authorizing expenditure of funds for copiers, printers, and related service renewal, $150,000.
That'd be moves.
Trivia second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Dewey,
Trivia, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges.
Yes.
Tepe,
That'd be yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
I thank you. Resolution V is authorization expenditure of funds for copiers, printers, and related service renewal of $150,000.
Sanchez moves.
Trivia seconds.
Sanchez, Julie, discussion. Roll call. Please.
Dewey,
Trivia, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges. Tepe,
That'd be yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
I thank you. W is a resolution authorizing expenditure of funds for network storage and services of $822,000. 820, I'm sorry.
Lewis moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Dewey,
Trivia, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges.
Yes.
Tepe,
That'd be yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
Thank you. Item X is a resolution authorizing expenditure of funds for computer hardware, software, and services of $900,000.
Sanchez moves.
Trivia second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Dewey,
Trivia, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges.
That'd be yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
Thank you. Y is a resolution authorizing the Kane County Sheriff's office purchase of a bomb squad X-ray machine of $42,833.
Leonard moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Doobie,
Doobie, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
This sounds so cool. Yes.
Teddy,
Happy yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes. Thank you. Z is a resolution ratifying an emergency purchase affidavit to purchase a 2023 Ford Escape Hybrid for the building maintenance, building management department of $46,733.
Doobie moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez, second, discussion.
I would just like to make a comment.
Oh,
Because
yes.
I'm very anti these emergency purchase affidavits. It's been explained to me that as the cars and trucks become available, we have to act on them, which is why this is happening. So that is why I am supporting the emergency purchase affidavits on the vehicles.
Good example of why we have the emergency.
This is actually a good example of why we have them. Yes.
Very good. Roll call, please.
Doobie,
Yeah.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Burgess, yes.
Teddy,
Happy yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yeah.
passes.
And item A, a resolution ratifying an emergency purchase affidavit to purchase a 2023 Ford Escape Hybrid for the Information Technology Department of $43,376.
Doobie moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Louis Sanchez, discussion. Roll call, please.
Doobie,
Doobie, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges, Teddy,
Happy yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
I thank you. And AB is a resolution authorizing the number of procurement cards issued to the King County Law Library and each of their transaction limits.
Lewis moves.
Those moves.
Sanchez seconds.
Sanchez, second discussion. Roll call, please.
Doobie,
Doobie, aye.
Lewis,
Lewis, yes.
Sanchez,
Sanchez, yes.
Surges,
Yes.
Teddy,
Happy yes.
Leonard,
Leonard, yes.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
passes.
AC. A resolution authorizing the King County Sheriff's Office.
Oh,
I don't have an AC.
We don't have an AC. I don't have an AC. Mm-mm.
It's not AC up on there.
Right.
You must have printed this from Bernadette's, but this one is.
Well, I have mine before you got yours, so.
You're special.
You're a higher level. You're the higher level, sir.
He's got next month's.
I hate to quit with just AB. I think we need an AC. No, that's the end of our new business. Any old business? Have none. Motion to the reports placed on file.
Sanchez moves.
Sanchez,
Doobie second.
any discussion of that? Roll call, please.
You do a voice vote for this?
Pardon?
Money behind it, we could do a voice vote.
Oh, voice, okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? They will be placed on file. I have no comments. Executive session, not that I'm aware of. Any public comments on non-agenda items? Motion for adjournment?
Moves.
Leonard moves.
Doobie
Sanchez
second.
seconds.
Sanchez second, we are adjourned.
All those in